Hey.
Hello.
Good morning, afternoon.
Evening.
Okay, so hello.
Hello.
Thank you for being here again. Y'all have been a great audience for this course.
Well, thank you.
Thank you for being so great and for listening to me. The purpose of this speech today is to persuade you of something. So we were given a list of topics, and the topic that I chose is, it says, the story of creation as told by the Bible is a fairy tale. So I am going to persuade you that it's not a fairy tale. So something you should know is that I am not super knowledgeable on the subject. I don't know enough about creation to argue it very well, like a professional would, or someone who's really knowledgeable in that. So I kind of took this as a chance to brush up on it so that I could know for the future. So I simplified it down so that I could understand it enough to talk to y'all about it. I'm not arguing creation versus evolution. I'm just arguing that it's not a simple fairy tale. So I hope it's enjoyable, and I hope I can teach y'all something maybe, or enlighten you. So here we go. The story of creation as told by the Bible is not a fairy tale.
Amen.
Yes. So how I'm going to kind of go through this is I'm going to offer 3 different perspectives on why I think it's not a fairy tale. I'm going to talk about a scientific perspective, a historical one, and a personal perspective. So the first point is even science can be in favor of creation. This is the one that you typically kind of see, creation versus evolution. And how I think that science can even be in favor of it is that geneticists are now saying that life on Earth couldn't have begun on Earth, that it would have had to come to Earth. So, I mean, there are tons of theories saying that could have been done by aliens. People argue that. A higher being of some kind, of course. But even scientists agree now that the Earth wasn't in a good condition. So, at the time, so it couldn't have just started life. So that's kind of interesting. All scientists basically will agree that between 15 and 20,000 years ago, something significant happened. And there are tons of theories about that. Robert Jeffries, he's a Christian author. He wrote in his book, How Can I Know, that, what's his name? Richard Dawkins, he's a famous evolutionist. He said that life was so diverse and intelligent that it would have had to have been designed by 1,000 gods. So even evolutionists are now saying that it was too complex to just happen. The Big Bang Theory is a really common theory that's argued against creation. And kind of how the Big Bang Theory works is that it began with a star and ended with man. And that's kind of how the Bible tells us it too. In the Bible, it obviously starts with light and ends with man. And so even they agree. And it's kind of crazy that a man, the author, whoever people like to decide who he is, if you're a Christian or not, obviously we think it's Moses. No, it's Moses. It's crazy that he could just get it right according to science. So there's a scientific view. So the second point is history. And this one's kind of interesting too, because it's more scientific as well, because people really like to believe science and they believe that is sound fact. And so anthropologists are now saying that life had to all come from one single male and one single female, a man and a woman, because this is going to get really scientific. Mitochondrial DNA, that's the DNA that turns food into energy for your cells to create more cells. And so that specific kind of DNA can only be transferred and inherited through a female, or can only be passed down through the female. So there had to be a woman to create this kind of DNA. So that's kind of interesting. And also, historians say, this is something you kind of learned in like junior high and high school, but life began in the Middle East with the Mesopotamians, and that definitely agrees with the Bible too. There used to be theories that said that life began in Africa and then spread everywhere, or life began in Egypt, but they're now saying that life did begin in the Middle East and was spread out. So third point, and this is more of my personal perspective, is that creation isn't a fairy tale because the Bible isn't a fairy tale, and neither is the life of a Christian. And to me, I think if the Bible has the answers to every kind of addiction, every kind of temptation, every sin imaginable, then it can't be a fairy tale. It can't just be happy and like light. Even reading the Bible, whether you're a Christian or not, sometimes makes you uncomfortable because of the convictions that you feel. And so I think to be compared to a fairy tale is too simple. You can't compare something like that. And something that's easy for me to understand, and it's easy to explain to children as they grow up and people who don't understand the Bible, is just seeing creation all around you. If you see any kind of sunrise or the Grand Canyon or something, it's hard to argue that creation wasn't intelligently designed, and that it didn't just happen. And two, the Bible in itself, the book, is too important and too valuable for people. I see it as absolute truth, as Christians do, but it's the best-selling book in the world, the most written book, the most copied book. Guinness World Record will tell you that if you don't just believe it already. And so it holds too much authority. And when people, I feel like, argue against anything, it's always something against creation. Whether it's evolution against creation or this other religion against creation. It's always what people argue against. So I think in itself it's too important to say that it's a fairy tale. You don't compare everything to a fairy tale. And I think the fact that not so many people, but people have a problem with it and make careers out of arguing against it, says too much for it to be a fairy tale. So overall, scientifically, that's a big one. People love to argue against the Bible and throw out facts, and historically, obviously, and personally, I don't think it can be a fairy tale. So that's my perspective. There are thousands of different perspectives. Even other Christians probably know way more about that than I do. But this is a simplified version of how I believe the Bible is not a fairy tale.
Very good. You did a great job, girl.
Thank you.